Welcome back. I took last week off because I was on vacation, and I was telling my friend Tammy, who's here, that I didn't take my laptop, which never happens. I always have it with me. So it was so wonderful. We were up on Mackinac Island, which is one of our favorite retreats as a family. But we're back this week, and I am so delighted because my friend Tamera Alexander is with us. And I hope you've had the opportunity to read her phenomenal historical romance family saga, their reconstruction. The last 7 or 8, maybe more, Tammy, you can correct me, have been set in the Nashville area, but she's also written in Colorado. Right. And Tammy, you want to take just a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey guys, first of all, thank you, Cara, for having me. This is fun. We've known each other for quite a while. And thank you, readers, for joining us for a quick chat. Tamera Alexander, Tammy is great though. And I write historical fiction, have been writing. My first 2 books came out in 2006. And I am not a pithy writer, as we will probably discuss tonight. Cara, do not do that. Do not do that. So thank you. Okay, well, and we're done. But I love history, and especially in this day and age, I think it's very important for us to remember our history and the real history. So I work very closely with Southern mansions, with the antebellum mansions here in Nashville specifically, to get all of that history packed in there, and then to weave the fictive, the fictive dream, as we call it. Yeah. And then my first 7 were Colorado territory, which we lived there for a while. So write what you know, and I write where I live and write where I visited, which just makes it I love writing, and just really grateful God's given me this opportunity.
Well, and what I love about your books is that I do feel transported. When I'm reading them, I feel like I am back, like in the most recent one, Color of Truth. I feel like I am literally back in Nashville in 1866, 1867, a year after the war has ended. And it's so descriptive that I really feel transported there. And a couple of times when we've gotten to Nashville, I have dragged my family to Belmead or Belmont because I'm like, I have to see these places where these books are set.
Oh, that's great. That is wonderful for you to do that. And I love that these places are still there, and readers. I did a Southern Mansion Reader Weekend back in 2018. We were going to do another one in 2020. That did not quite work out. So I'm planning another one for either this fall, and we'll have a date soon, or possibly next spring of 2022. But yeah, we do dinner at Belmont, breakfast at Belmead, and then dinner at Carnton. We tour all the places, we walk the grounds, we talk history. But I just love it that you took your family there, and I love it when readers help to keep history alive by visiting those places. So
well, and like you said, it is so important that we actually know the real history, the uncomfortable parts, and those moments where we're like, okay, but there were good things happening. And when you're writing about Tennessee and Nashville after the Civil War, and some of the characters, you also tell their story kind of leading up to and through the war. It's not all pretty. It's not all, shiny and, oh, we were wonderful. But isn't that how people really are, though? I mean, that's the truth. There's the good and the bad, and we have to embrace, or at least understand and accept that we have both sides.
I totally agree with that, and I love when I have the opportunity to talk about the real history. We do talk about the good and the bad, and I liken it to the Word. Look at the Word of God, and the heroes of the faith, as we sometimes call them. They are deeply flawed, not just slightly flawed, deeply flawed men and women of God, who God has then taken them, not due to anything special within them. He is the one who is special, and he floods through them, and he really uses them as his instruments. And so I look back at history, and I love also looking through different perspectives, and that's what I do as I write, is you look from the different perspectives of the different people that you're writing from. Even though there may only be 2 POV or 3 POV characters, point of view characters, you need to expand and look at everyone, because if you're only writing from one POV, it's very easy to slant. And so, yeah, I do think it's very important to take the whole.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that Angela just dropped a comment over here about that she loves how you fairly depict both sides of the war and the aftermath of the war. And it's very easy. I'm from Nebraska, and when we lived in Virginia, because we lived right outside DC for 8 years, and in Virginia, there's, you know, the art is very much the only good Yankee's a dead Yankee, and there is this, it was part of the South, and it's very entrenched in kind of the history.
Sure.
And it's easy to go, well, it was just all wrong on their side. They were completely misguided. Why would they have gotten into this fight, brother versus brother? And yet they had reasons, and they had their motivations, just as the North had theirs. And so I think you do a wonderful job of really outlining and highlighting all of that, as well as, you know, the African-American perspective. And again, the color of truth, you're also highlighting how, you know, Irish immigrants were treated, and they weren't always treated well either. And so it's kind of that whole
not treated well at all. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the horrible language that was used toward the African American was also used toward Irish people, and it was they were, you know, they couldn't get jobs. They came up. It was a what is it in I think it's in New Orleans, they say that the bones of their cobbled, you know, those roads are paved with the bones of the Irish, because there was just a lot of conflict. But one thing, and thank you, Angela, for saying that, one thing that I really explore, especially in with this pledge, which was the first full-length novel in the Carnton. Oh, look at you.
I think I have it here.
You may not have that one. That's fine. But I mean, how do you explore why a Southern man and fought for that war? Because everyone thinks, well, they had slaves, so they were fighting for slavery. No, they were fighting for home and country. The government back then, you know, Abraham Lincoln, they felt had way overstepped bounds and taken executive privilege a little too far. Sound familiar in the last decade or so of that on both sides of the aisle. So this is nothing new. And if you look back before the Civil War, the very things that we are arguing about today in the 1840s, 1850s were precursors to the Civil War. And that's why I always tell people, this is, you know, when they say never before have we been so divided, I just want to say, do you know your history? No, we don't.
Exactly.
We don't. So, but yeah, so I explore in basically in those Carnton novels, because the Battle of Franklin happened there, is why men and women, and why men went to war, and how are you grateful as the heroine Lizzie walks that battlefield afterward. How are you grateful for men who fought on a side that she personally was not for? How do you appreciate the blood that was shed for this country as a whole? And I think you have to step back and realize that someone who, you know, I mean, artillery is coming at you, 20,000 soldiers over here are they have you in, basically it was an animal pen is what they called the Battle of Franklin, and they just annihilated Hood's army. But yet those men kept going. They saw their comrades slaughtered, and what kept them marching forward when most of them never ever owned slaves? And that was what I dealt with and really dove into, reading the soldiers' journals and so much historical, you know, documents, everything. So, but it was a wonderful growth time for me too, to look into the history of this country and to ask myself, would I do that on that battlefield for this country? Would I do that? Or would I kind of retreat and say, we'll live to fight another day and we'll work this out? So it's very humbling to look at the sacrifice that both of those armies gave on that battlefield.
Well, and I think as we look back, it's so easy to go, oh, the winner was right.
We judge. Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, or because like my passion, I love American history, absolutely love it. But if I were going to say my passion time period is World War II, and it's so easy to go, well, how did the Germans just allow the Holocaust? You know, but it's when you look at how it built up over time, and you have to look at World War I, and you have to look at the aftermath of World War I, and you have to look at, you know, the 1800s, and it was this culmination of generations.
Right.
But at the same time, they're still living under that today. And so it's just stunning when you go there and you sense just how much that still is a burden. And right. So understanding our history so we can learn from it and we can try and avoid the bad parts of it, the parts where we're like, man, if we could go back and we could redo that, how would we redo that very first slave ship that came to the continent, and how would we redo, but it's not just that, it was much more than that. And Nina dropped a comment about there were Irish slaves who built the rice fields in Savannah.
Absolutely.
I didn't know
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else is that when we talk about our history is we need to realize, we cannot go back and, we'd like to have a redo. Well, we cannot redo that. But one thing we can do is learn from it and make better choices today. And I always tell people there is more slavery in the world today than there was in the transatlantic slave trade. But we don't see it. And we talk about how could the German people not know? How could they? Yeah. Life happens and we get sucked into, we live in this little tiny world, more so then obviously than we do now, because we have this and we know everything on the other side of the world instantly. But still there are a lot of things to care about. But right now, what am I doing about slave trade right now? And so there's an organization that Joe and I partner with. It's called In Our Backyard, and Nina does such a wonderful job in helping to combat that. But it's just, you look and you think, okay, we can go back and blame and judge. That's going to do nothing. How about we learn and then make a difference in our current world where we can make a difference and move forward and change lives? So
absolutely. And that's one of the things. Sorry, I'm looking for the comment right now.
Oh.
I love how they're all coming in. But
great.
Linda said, I wish we could learn from the past. God tries to teach us and remind us of this. And I think that's why historical fiction is actually really important, because it is an opportunity for us to not forget the past and to have it contextualized. What I always like to say, and Angela, thank you for saying you love Shadowed by Grace.
Amen.
But yeah, it's my Monuments Men book. I'll always love it. But I always say that when I'm writing historical, or like Flight Risk actually deals with some of the human trafficking and slavery that's going on today, my job as a novelist is to do the research and to do the digging to make sure I know the history, or if it's a contemporary, to know what's actually happening today, but then wrap it inside a story so that people who will never invest the time in the nonfiction, thick tomes that you and I are reading will be able to grasp and understand that, oh, this really happened, or, oh my gosh. Like when I was writing Flight Risk, and it was dealing with human trafficking and some of the sex trade and things like that. And so I'm doing immense amounts of research with Operation Underground Railroad and the Exodus Project and all these different organizations to go, okay, how do you really work with the local police in these countries, and what is the right way to help these women and children and anyone who's captured in that life? And because it's more prevalent today than it's ever been, which just is mind-blowing and heartbreaking all at the same time. So we'd like to think that, oh, it doesn't happen, but the reality is it does. And it's a bigger problem today than it's ever been.
Right. And there are so many places and so many organizations that are working. But, I always tell people, just ask God where he's working in your area, and he will open the door for you. He will, it's amazing. Someone will come up and you'll say, what a coincidence. No, it's the Holy Spirit working, and he will show you where to give and how you can. And it may seem like, well, this is a very tiny thing, but it's nothing is tiny in this war. Everything matters. So just whatever you can do is great.
So Danielle is saying, okay, we've convinced her that she needs to go read this book. Colors of Truth is the most recent one that came out. And Linda said, she applauds you for your conviction to go ahead with the publishing of Colors of Truth.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. That was, it was certainly an unexpected little twist and turn, but, I've likened it where, and I'm not, and I'll just go and say, if you'll remember where Joseph's brothers, threw him in the pit, and at the very end, they meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. I'm not saying that is not a direct correlation. I'm just saying that Yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, because I've got still friends at that company, and we're all fine. But I do think God just brought so much good out of it, because I was already wanting to indie publish down the line, but God opened a door, and what better way? I mean, this book has done. I've just been amazed. It's done so well, but that is, I think that's largely because we had already advertised it, and my readers knew the cover and all that kind of stuff. So it was a wonderful indie launch. But when it came time, and they basically asked me to rewrite history, they wanted things changed. They wanted me to, kind of back off on some things. Let's don't put that in there. That might offend people. And there was never a moment where I wavered, and you think, oh, well, that's just, but God, a year before that, and I won't go into it. If you'll look on my homepage, there's a link where I do go into this, but God had already prepped me a year before that for this moment. So when it came up and it was like, you need to rewrite history, this book is not palatable, people will not read this, they won't like what's inside. I just felt the Holy Spirit just saying, nope, we got this. But the main thing, and it was fun. So Angie Hunt, thank you. Deb Rainey, who is my writing critique partner, her husband Ken helped me with the cover or whatever, but I had about a month to put it up on indie. So it was a crash course in indie publishing. That was the hardest thing, but it was also great fun. My background in school was in marketing and business. So I've always loved the marketing side of things. I just want to thank readers who came along with me, because I put out the video and said, it's coming. And then I had to immediately put out another video saying, it's not coming. But y'all were just so wonderful, and how you stepped up and really supported the novel and told people about it. And there's nothing like word of mouth at all, no matter what marketing a publisher does, or an indie publisher, an indie author does. Your word of mouth and how you just tell people that's the real lifeblood of a book and its success. It really is. So thank you from my heart. Thank you.
Well, and it's so true. Readers often will ask, okay, so what's more meaningful to you? Do you want, I've seen recently on Facebook, they're like, do you want to get a message from us, or an email, or a review? And I'm always like, the review, tell your friends that you loved it, post the cover on, Facebook or Instagram or wherever you are, and say, hey, I just read this book and I loved it. I think you will too. Because you're right, that word of mouth is so critical. Mary Ann says that In Our Backyard was actually started near her in Bend, Oregon. So that's kind of a fun connection.
Yes, that's right. Oh, how cool. Yeah. Oh, and that's a wonderful book too. You can just Google it on let's see, Amazon or wherever, but it's a wonderful book about how that organization, came to be, and all that they do. And there are lots of them, but that's just one of them that is tried and true and proven that, people can partner with if they're interested. So
yeah, and that's great, because it is important when you're giving your resources of time or money to make sure that it's with an organization that has some kind of track record to show they can actually do it.
Exactly.
So, and there's lots of support for, you can't change the past, but we can do is change today, and to grow from that.
Yeah.
And Joy was like, I've learned so much from Tamera's books as it relates to history, and I wish history teachers would have recommended historical fiction books to me back when I was in school.
Oh, how wonderful. One of my greatest, it was so fun, is I grew up in the Tucker Stone Mountain area in Georgia. So I go back occasionally to Greater Atlanta Christian School, and I have built, which is where I went to high school, and they've had me come back and teach, or not teach, but just to share about history. But the juniors and seniors, sophomores, juniors, and seniors will read the book, and then I go in and we just have the most wonderful discussions with that, with that up and coming generation, because they do see things very differently, obviously, understatement, but it's wonderful. It's just great conversations, which is what we need to be having more of today, is not my side, your side, but let's sit down with, invite someone over for dinner who doesn't agree with you. And just let's open your home, and let's have more of that table fellowship, which we used to have. So, and aren't you ready for it after COVID?
Oh,
we were
no
just
kidding.
talking about that.
Well, and it's something that I think in some ways social media has damaged, is that ability to have civil discourse where we disagree. because when there's the screen between us, we can sometimes forget there's a person on the other side.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we don't listen to each other. We kind of shout at each other.
Right.
And so that ability to say, hey, let's have coffee and I want to hear where you're coming from, but I hope you'll do me the same honor of hearing where I'm coming from, and we can learn from each other.
Exactly.
It's such an important skill that I think we have to actively teach now, because people have just completely lost sight of that.
I agree.
So Angela's asking what book it was that we were talking about. It's The Color of Truth, or Colors of Truth.
Colors of Truth.
Earlier this year, right? Like around.
Right. No, it came out in October.
Oh my gosh, is it already in October?
8 months ago, I guess. 8, yeah. But
wow.
This Colors of Truth, and it really plays on if you'll obviously North and South, you know, the gray and the blue, and also the racial issue, and also right after the Civil War, counterfeit money was huge, and that green ink that they used and they came up with, and they thought, this, we've got it. They won't be able to duplicate this. 2 weeks later, done. And everybody was duplicating. So it's all about the colors of truth and people telling the truth, people telling shades of the truth. And that was one of the things that in the year prep before that moment came, where I had to decide, am I going to change this book? And, you know, because I mean, the books were already printed, guys. And so they just burned 20-something thousand books. And yeah, I mean, it was one of those moments you're like, really? But anyway, but yeah, it was such a moment. But anyway, God is good, and it all worked out. But it's just the colors of truth is that there is one truth. There is one truth. And someone said, this is a while back, and someone said, well, but like when you're going on an appointment, or you just really don't want to go to a party, you can say, you know, I've got another commitment.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? God has really worked with me even on that. I said, I really don't have the commitment. And what I've started saying is just, my bandwidth is shot for this week. I just need.
Oh, that's a great way.
I just need some downtime, and it is me. It's not you. Can we schedule this a couple of weeks out? Because I just need some downtime. I am drowning right now. And so instead of saying, oh, I'd love to, I have another commitment. No, you don't. No, I need to recoup and go home and just kind of, you know. So
yeah.
Anyway,
well, and it is, we feel like we have to say the right thing instead of saying the honest thing. And
just, and there's a
way. You just convicted me.
Oh, well, listen, God really, like I said, he dealt with me. So in that moment, in that 2-hour Zoom conversation, there was never a time where I thought, I'm going to have to do this. I just sat there, and part of me was just like, my eyes, I'm sure, grew bigger and bigger. But I just, no, this is not, God has already dealt with me on this. And the answer is emphatically no. So.
No, that's fantastic. Susan asked if you have an audiobook of this one, and she does. I would say all your books are probably in audio. It should be available on Hoopla and Libby and Audible and iTunes.
Yep. All of them are out. Yep.
And then several comments about they love good historical fiction, especially in our age. And I'm like, yes, I love listening to good historical fiction, especially with, you know, the right accents and all that. It can be
yes, I love the Irish accent. Yeah,
it's so much fun. I don't know why, but I just love the Irish even more than a straight British accent. So you are, all of your books to date, I think I'm accurate in saying that, have been historical, either in Colorado or here around
Nashville.
Mm-hmm. And you're changing things up now.
Yes, just a little bit. I am writing my very first contemporary. It is a dual timeline, and it is in first person. I had a call from someone last year, and Focus on the Family is they're starting a fiction line. So I know Jerry Jenkins called of the Left Behind, and he's also doing, I wish I brought my chosen novel. If y'all, okay. And just a quick thing, if you haven't seen The Chosen, go to my homepage, scroll all the way down, all that you need there. It's the first mini series or TV show on the life of Christ. Fabulous. But anyway, he's doing the novelizations of all the series. So, but he called and said, you know, Focus on the Family wants me to spearhead it. I'll be the substantive editor. And I was like, yes, I will. Whatever you want. Yes, I'll do it. He's like, I haven't even told you. And I was like, but you're going to be the substantive editor and I get to learn from you. So
what else do I need?
We're good. I know. So let's see. It's let's see. The other two are Chris Fabry and then Angela Hunt, which Angela Hunt,
cool.
yeah, Angie. So the three of us, and so the three books will come out next year, sometime spring, summer, maybe. But mine is a dual timeline, but I do have there is an antebellum home involved in that story. Dual timeline, hint hint. So, and it's in Atlanta, hint hint. So do you think there might be some historical Southern fiction in there? Maybe.
Just a little bit.
Maybe. So I know. So I hope readers will join me and come along for that journey. So, and then after this one, I'll write the last Carnton book, the last Carnton novel, which is Nora, which is this little gal here, Nora. The third Carnton book is Nora, all grown up. So, and that's the first,
like the 80s, 1880s.
So it'll be 1878.
Okay.
1878. Yeah. So she is roughly like 20s. Yeah, she's 7, so she's roughly around 18 or 20. Anyway, I'm about halfway through or so with that one, with plotting and everything. So yeah, so that one will be out. So as soon as I'm done with this one, which I'm almost done, that's why I'm hidden away right now. I was telling Cara early, I'm hidden away writing somewhere, trying to get to the deadline on this one, and then I'll jump back to Carnton and finish it. And that one will be indie published since it follows in this line. And that one will be out in just before Christmas, probably. So
that is awesome. And there are several people who've left comments who will be very happy to know that the third book is coming. So that's
good. Thank you.
And several said, yep, I love The Chosen. Joy says, I love first person. And I wrote a novella in first person that came out last Christmas just because I wanted to try it. I've always thought it would be fun to write first person.
Is it not fun?
Oh my gosh, so much fun. But also a challenge when you're used to kind of, third person can be intimate, but it's still more distant than first person.
First person and oh my goodness, Claire, I mean, you can be so sarcastic and slightly tacky, and it is just, I'm having a great time. And this is a book about, troubled marriage. The husband does something he shouldn't have done. Then he buys her this antebellum home as a peace offering. That was also not a good choice. He buys it sight unseen, also not great. He takes a job, moves her from Colorado to Atlanta. Also, Stephen's just batting 0 for 1,000. It's not good. But anyway, so I have truly loved this. It's been fun.
That is so fun. Linda asked for writing groups in Georgia and Arizona, and I can tell you American Christian Fiction Writers has chapters in both locations.
Yep.
So if you're looking for Christian fiction writers groups, that's definitely where I would start. Joy says sarcastic is even better. And, it's so fun. Like the novella I just finished writing on Saturday. We got back from vacation Friday. Wow. Saturday was nice. Finish it, edit the whole thing, get it done, get it out.
Oh, wow.
And it's snarky. I'm like, it's so fun because it's just got, there's a little back and forth that reminds me of You Got Mail kind of dialogue. And it's just so fun.
Yeah. I love sarcasm. Not in a mean way, but Claire and Stephen can go at it and it's not always nice. But I love that. That's actually how, this may be TMI, but that's actually how Joe and I, we don't yell. We've never been yellers, but there were people living, some missionaries living with us once, and they said, we always knew that we needed to leave the room when things got very low and very pointed. When y'all started talking like this, it was like, shoot. So it's like, so I've had a lot of practice in sarcasm through the years.
That is so funny. Sometimes I feel like you're not from the Midwest. You're from the South, but sometimes I feel like my husband and I, especially when we first got married, our second language was sarcasm, And then we moved to Virginia, and I felt like I could tell people, this isn't mean. This is just Midwest sarcasm. This is just how we talk.
Oh, Southern sarcasm. We just sound sweet. We sound so sweet, and we might look sweet, but it's not.
When someone explained to me that bless her heart actually wasn't bless her heart.
No, it's not. That's exactly.
We're like,
That's exactly right.
I was taking it at face value. Please don't ever take that apart.
Yeah, no.
So Mary says she loves both of us. Yay! And she
Oh,
wants to
thank
visit
you.
Nashville because of these books. So Angela, you will have to stay tuned for the
Southern Mansion Reading Weekend.
Yeah, that would be, you know, when you did that, I can't believe it was 2015. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
It was 2018.
Okay.
2018.
That feels much more like I was imagining it, because I almost came. If I hadn't been teaching, because I was like, that would be such a fun way to get.
We had the best time. Yeah, we can do about 100 readers, you know, because it's based on the mansions, because we're doing dinner and all the meals there. But we just had the best. And you know, it's kind of like throwing a party and you're wondering if anybody's going to come. Yeah. And it sold out in just a couple of weeks, and we just had the best time. It was really fun. So I really hope we can do it again this fall or next spring, or maybe both.
And maybe, you know what, if you sell out really fast, I think you should do both.
And do another one. Yeah.
I think people love that connection between the fiction and the reality, and getting to experience both and go, oh, so this is where it happens, and this is what's, you know, true. And there's just something special about that. And I can't believe it, but our half hour is up, which is crazy. So for those of you who haven't met Tamera before, now you understand why she is one of my favorite writing friends. She's just delightful. And her latest book is Colors of Truth. And if you love historical, or if you're not even sure you love historical, her books are so richly layered and the characters are so wonderful that I could just about guarantee you will love her novels. And it has been so much fun to have you here tonight. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you everyone for joining us, and for the questions, and for all the love. That